Hi, this is Kelsey Furkowski for AP Gov Review, and in our final installment of Unit 5 dealing with public policy, we're going to be looking at social and environmental policy. So where does it come from in the Constitution that the United States government should play any role in social policy? Well, you're probably familiar with the preamble, and if you notice where it says promote the general welfare, that's really where social policy comes in. And the extent of the government's responsibility for its citizens has very much changed over time. That going from more of the laissez-faire type of economy espoused up until the turn of the 20th century, you see that really changing drastically with FDR's New Deal program. So social welfare programs are still very much highly controversial today. And typically when you think of social welfare, especially that second word welfare, you probably have a negative connotation, but almost every single American citizen is a benefactor of social welfare in some way or another, as I'll explain a little bit later. So most Americans during their lifetime will be recipients. Well, here you have it. Social Security, the insurance plan for the elderly, poor, and disabled. And the problem is, though, it is running out of money by around 2035, unless Congress somehow does something about it. But it is the number one program that is perhaps the most popular amongst senior citizens, especially who are receiving it and are on a fixed income. Other welfare includes anything from Medicare, which is, of course, your health insurance for the elderly, Medicaid, health insurance for the poor, and then, of course, you have food stamps. There was actually a brief period in 2005 under George W. Bush's administration when there was a push to privatize Social Security as a result of the baby boom, which is going to perhaps lead to its bankruptcy if something is not done to rectify it. But it ultimately failed because people do not want their Social Security being messed with. And as a result, it is amongst the most popular welfare program that remains in existence today. And here's a picture of a Social Security card, which you will, of course, receive when you were born, and you will certainly be using your Social Security number when you get a job and you're paying taxes and you're paying into it. So it will eventually reap its benefits in the long run. But of course, the problem with Medicare and Social Security is that the costs are really significantly increasing, as you can see projected up until about the year 2100. You see the percentage of taxable payroll is significantly increasing. So it's going to be an issue as to how to support it in the years to come. Now, when we look at entitlement programs, which consists of Medicare and Social Security, they are very, very different from what are known as means test programs. That means you have to meet certain eligibility requirements to qualify. So it's benefiting a select group of people who have specific needs. So, for example, to qualify for Medicaid, that is a means test program. You have to show that your income is at a very low amount. It's very, very difficult to qualify. As a result, you will receive Medicaid. Or, for example, the temporary assistance of needy families, which was created under the Welfare Reform Act of 1996 under Bill Clinton, you have to meet eligibility requirements. Whereas an entitlement program is entitled to every American citizen, a means test program is very much narrower. So when you think of welfare and you have that connotation, that negative connotation, you're most likely identifying that with a means test program, because if you're poor, you are going to receive certain benefits that the regular general populace is not. Another example of a means test program, the Earned Income Tax Credit. The working poor receive a check from Washington instead of sending one. So again, a means test program, you have to qualify, whereas entitlements you're going to be paying into, such as Medicare and Social Security. Very, very important to know the difference, again, between an entitlement program and a means test program. If you're going to get any question on social policy, it's probably going to be on that. Other types of social policy with healthcare, that was very contentious and still remains contentious. There was an attempt in 1993 to have universal healthcare that was defeated, but under President Obama, the Affordable Care Act prevailed. Also, in terms of social policy, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, regulating labeling and processing of food, drugs, cosmetics to ensure that what you're consuming is actually safe. And then, of course, you have the CDC, which provides updates on disease in North America. So if you've been following Zika, the CDC has been very, very active in trying to prevent that from spreading. Other types of social policy include public education. While it is certainly the responsibility of the states, you do have a Department of Education of about 4,200 people. The federal government does have a very limited role in that as a result of public education really being more of a reserved right to the states under the 10th Amendment. But nevertheless, the federal government is going to play a role in programs such as Head Start, which is going to help underprivileged children in education. Also, you've seen major education overhauls, such as the No Child Left Behind Act, which is an unfunded mandate which sets standards for teachers in the curriculum. And then you also have Race to the Top, which was very much endorsed by President Obama, which are basically having states compete for a pool of money. Ultimately, the federal government funds less than 10% of money because, again, that's more of a reserved power in the states. So the states are really going to be funding the bulk of the cost of education. In terms of regulatory policy, regulation of businesses does not really occur, as we said in the previous units, until the late 1800s during the Progressive Era. This has grown significantly over time. And of course, you're going to see the elimination of monopolies, regulating labor, especially under FDR, as well as going after antitrust activity as well. Now, when we look at labor and government, typically the government has sided with business over time, and where you see this begin to change is at the turn of the 20th century with the Progressive Era and Teddy Roosevelt with his Square Deal. You'll eventually have the formation of the National Labor Relations Board, known as the NLRB, regulating labor management relations. There's also the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947, which is going to allow unions the right to collectively bargain. So they're really bargaining and negotiating salary and health benefits on behalf of everybody. So that is a major power of unions today. Government now provides unemployment compensation and minimum wage. So again, you see the government having a major hand in regulations as well. With respect to environment, you have the Department of Energy. This was actually created in the 1970s with the very famous gas shortages. Also, they maintain a supply of cheap energy for its activities, also very much instrumental in the reserves of oil in particular. And of course, the most notable agency with regulation is the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, which is going to be enforcing policies on water, air pollution, waste disposal, and many states have their own EPA as well. Two very important acts you should be aware of, because this has popped up on previous AP Gov exams. First one being the Clean Air Act of 1970, which mandates the Department of Transportation with reducing automobile emissions. And then you also have the Endangered Species Act of 1973, which is again a protection program and requires active protection by the government regardless of economic costs. That's a good example of unfunded mandates like we talked about in Unit 1. So this is some of the major environmental policy that you should be aware of, both of which are unfunded mandates. All right, let's end with a review question. Policies that attempt to provide assistance and support to specific groups in society are called which of the following? And if you said D, means tested policies, you are correct. Really, the key word here, specific groups. If it was to everybody, you would have entitlement policies. So the best answer here, means tested policies. The best thing you should really know out of this policy unit, is the difference between a means tested and an entitlement program.